Hello and welcome to this podcast, an in-depth and special focus on issues affecting Namibians. I am Marlise Izaaks. So today back with our listeners today is Prof Heino Falcke. He's a German-Dutch professor of radio astronomy and astroparticle physics at the Radboud University. Professor Falcke, a very warm welcome to our Namibian audience again.
Thank you. It's great to be back with you.
Since your last trip to Namibia, what have you been up to, just to start off our session?
Well, we've been, discussing and working towards bringing a new radio telescope to Namibia, and we've been positively surprised by more good news about funding that was granted by also the Dutch government to support that project. So we are now back in Namibia to sign an agreement between actually our universities to work together on this project and with much more concrete details, and will be signed actually in front of the Namibian president and the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, who is visiting Namibia. And so on that occasion, I'll be back in Namibia. And it's good to see how Namibia is now actually in the focus of the world. I've been noticing that actually a number of high-ranking guests actually visiting Windhoek in this year, actually. And so yes, it shows, I think, how important Namibia has become strategically, I think, on the world scene.
Yeah, but I know last time we spoke a lot about the first black hole, the image of the first black hole, and how that works. And it was so interesting for our audience. But tell us about your book, Light in the Darkness.
Well, at the heart of the book is, of course, the story of that first image. But I wanted to embed it actually, in the much larger story of mankind, of humankind, looking up at the night sky, because that's how it all started. People looked up at these little lights in the sky, and they realized there's something much bigger out there. And by looking at these little lights, we've come to learn much more about the universe, about ourselves, our place in this universe. And that's a fascinating history from really the early ages of humankind to today, where we're actually able to image a black hole, making use of the entire world. The entire world is a telescope, but also the collaboration of people around the world. So that's quite amazing. Intermixed is a little bit of my, personal experiences in this field. So you get a first-hand view of how science works and how, a young scientist develops into, an older scientist, not necessarily a wiser one, but one that has seen a lot and experienced a lot of things firsthand in this field. And then also I was encouraged by the publisher, a German publisher, and they published Hawking, the books of this famous physicist, Stephen Hawking, and who also were addressing the big question: is there a God in the universe? And how does science and religion go together at some point? And I come also from a different point of view than Hawking, who is sort of a self-proclaimed atheist, I think. And I come from a Christian background, and I try to also outline and say, look, there is this. We're getting to the edge of our knowledge. I mean, we're going to the Big Bang in the beginning that people talk about. We don't know where everything started from, but we know it started. We know that the universe, had a beginning. And we're looking at the end of space and time, black holes, which also present a fundamental boundary, a fundamental limit of what we can know. And so at some point, the technology and the science tells us also we are not almighty and we are not all-knowing, and invites us to actually look at something that may be bigger than just the world we see here. And it's not that science gives you all the answers. I think that's something I wanted to also express. Because sometimes our scientists come along, we can build airplanes and we can build rockets, fly to the moon and so forth. We can predict the weather, not always exactly. We can predict black holes and see them, as if we would be able to, we're almighty and know everything. No, we cannot. There are fundamental limitations to what the a human can see. And so those, more philosophical, also theological questions I address a little bit at the end as well. And invite the reader, I think, to think about them. And in the end, marvel about, creation and the beauty and the grandeur, the size, the sheer size of the universe. I want to talk to people, not just to scientists, but I want to inspire people. That's, and share a little bit of my enthusiasm. Because that's what makes us human, right? Our enthusiasm, our curiosity. And that's why we do these things.
Yes, and that's what I would also like to ask you. You've now spoken about the message in your book. Is there some other message that you want people to get for themselves out of your book? It's for everybody, and I also am looking forward to reading your book. So what is the message that our universe is so big? And you've touched on some of the messages in your book.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, don't be afraid of science. I think science can be fascinating, and it's part of a human enterprise. And if you are, a believer or not, don't be afraid of science either. I mean, it's always enriching, yourself. But if you are not a believer, don't be afraid of religion either. I mean, the question of God will always come up. That's also at the end of the book, right? So I mean, this fact that science will not answer all your life's questions, will not even answer all the scientific questions, because there are fundamental limits built into it, and we are now at a new era of actually humankind. We're seeing images no generation has seen us before. And we have technology that lets us see the universe in a way that nobody has seen it before. We see the Earth like angels from above. We see planets from nearby. We see countless galaxies out there. There are more stars out there than there are grains of sand and on the beaches of this world. And so let's ask the question: who are we as humans actually in this grand universe? And I think what makes us unique is that we can marvel at it. We can look at the beauty of creation. We can ask about it. We can be curious. We can hope, love, and believe. That's what stars and the rest of the universe cannot. At least not the part of the universe that we can see. So it's it always asks the question: who are we? Who are humans in view of the star and the moon and so forth that you've placed there? There's a verse from the Psalms actually. It talks about King David, marveling at the stars and the moon. Who are we that you have created us? You are so much bigger, and yet think we are valuable. We have something special in us, and that's to some degree our love, our curiosity, our faith, our questions.
Yeah, I always also marvel at the works of God's hands. But you've mentioned that our heavens are open, and we should actually proclaim it like a heritage site.
Absolutely. I think you have an unfair advantage. The center of the Milky Way is just passing right over you. So this is the most beautiful part of our Milky Way, and most of the stars and most spectacular sights. You have clear, dark nights. There's hardly a place in the world which is has a better view of the night sky. And I think that is a world heritage. It's in danger because there are American mega constellation of satellites which are filling the night sky. So at some point, nowhere in the world you will have actually this unhindered view of the universe anymore. So that actually is we may be the last generation that has this view. So I hope there are ways to protect the night sky, and that Namibia really appreciates that as a natural resource that you have, that we've almost lost completely in Europe. And there are a few places, but even in the best places, it's never as beautiful as it's in Namibia. And I think it will be a place for science, in part because of the good location that you have, but also the talented people. I've met so many, smart, young, enthusiastic people here that I'm very confident that there is a new generation of scientists, engineers, people who want to do things, who are curious, that can really help change the world and maybe help preserve the world as well. Because we technology is a blessing and a curse at the same time. We're about to destroy some fraction of our planet with our technology, but maybe technology can and certainly science can help us to find the right solutions. And for that we need everything. And for example, the telescope you're bringing is the first of its kind that we're building. It's the first of its kind in Africa. And I think that will have a legacy value because people more and more will see what the importance is of Africa and Namibia specifically for astronomy, but also other areas of science, perhaps.
Yeah. Would you like to elaborate on building of the telescope here in Namibia?
Well, when we made this first image of a black hole, it was, we said we took it with the world because we were combining radio telescopes all over the world, and every telescope had a slightly different perspective. And by bringing these slightly different perspectives together, we'd get the sharpest view ever, for any astronomical observation. And but that wasn't quite true because we were not using the world. All of Africa was missing, for example, and that actually makes a gap, so to speak, in our. That's a very important perspective that's missing, and so we want to build a telescope of that kind. This is a high frequency radio telescope. If you look at the satellite dish that some of you may have, it's the same, just bigger, 15-meter in diameter. And going to much higher frequencies, much smaller wavelengths, so it has to be much better surface accuracy. So in terms of engineering, it's much more difficult than your satellite dish. But in principle, it's the same thing, just a bit larger, and that allows us to really peer all the way into the cosmos to see really near black holes. But it also looks at other interesting things like if you look at the night sky here in Namibia, you see these dark patches. These are actually molecular clouds. These are dust clouds which are in our Milky Way and out of which stars form. And so these telescopes also look at the chemistry and the molecules which are out there in the universe. So you learn something about the cradle of stars and planets and maybe the cradle of life there. Yeah, no, I think it's the book is a way to communicate. You learn a little bit of my life as a scientist, my personality, but you learn a lot about the universe as well. So I think you get a very personal view, but also a personal view of the universe itself and how science works these days. And I want to invite you to think a little bit about yourself in this cosmos and what your place is. And I want you to invite to have an open mind towards science, but also an open mind towards faith, also towards your own. And one of the important things about science is you always have to question yourself. I mean, you shouldn't always be too sure. I mean, there are bigger truths out there, but it's not that we always understand them in everything. So keep questioning, keep asking yourself, and that's what science does, and that's what the book actually wants to invite you to.
Thank you so much, Prof Falcke, for giving us this opportunity and for giving us an insight and look into your book. And all the best with your endeavors and all the best with your traveling to Namibia and back. And we hope to speak to you again sometime soon.
I hope to be back again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I am Marlise Izaaks, and thank you for listening to this podcast episode with special focus on issues affecting Namibians.